There we go.
Hey, all set.
Okay, we're all, everyone, good morning. Just in terms of attendance, Wendy, everyone on the committee is attending except Catherine. And I'd like to welcome Gary Maloney as a citizen guest. Gary, the rules are you probably downloaded, all the rules, etc. On each agenda item, you're free to speak afterwards after we chaw on it a little bit. Okay, I am, let me just pull up the agenda here for one moment. Okay. Okay, the first thing we need to do is to go through a number of minutes here from going back as far as November 30th. And I'm going to try to put those up on the screen. One moment here. Let's see.
I can put them up because if
Yeah,
I
Wendy, why don't you go ahead and put them up?
yeah, let's see if we can find that. And here we are. Open up. There you go.
Excellent.
So
Okay.
these don't include the suggested changes I made, Wendy. Did you see those?
I believe they did, but
Well, 4A doesn't include the change I suggested.
okay, what was that?
So 4A, future activities will focus on efforts based on the CTAC charge, period.
Okay.
And I have something there also, point one or point I, whatever.
Yeah.
It's pursuing the MLP model, not MLB.
Oh.
MLB, Major League Baseball.
Well, maybe we should look in on the
The others are there though. I think.
NFL and
Where's
fix that.
Yeah. Where's 5B? If you can show me 5B, that was the last one, I think. 5B.
Maybe if they have Cape houses, we can get donations to the cause.
Yeah,
So where
really.
it says Falmouth is interviewing for the position, it's really Falmouth has released a request for services for the position. They're not interviewing anybody yet.
Okay, the notes that I have from their meeting says they're interviewing, but
No, no,
okay.
they're interviewing people from the RFI,
Okay.
right?
So
This is for the position of MLP manager. They released a request for services. So yeah, that's what you want to say.
What
Released
was the due date for them? Their
January
deadline?
15th.
okay,
Did we
how's
mention
that?
that at the meeting? Because that might be something to add in there.
Well, they're not going to have a meeting. That's just when the applications are due. Whether they decide to have a meeting or not, it's another question.
Oh, I
Oh,
mean, like, did
hang on.
we mention that? Because this is the minutes of the meeting, so I just want to make sure they're complete.
Oh, yeah. No, I did. This is what I was bringing up. This was during my session.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I might have said January 15th was the due date, but I don't remember that. And then 5DI, it says Oliveira, should be Oliver. It's Chris Oliver.
Yeah, I got that too.
Oh, sorry about that, Mr. Oliver.
That's all I got.
All righty. Anybody else?
All right, I'll make a motion. We approve the minutes as modified.
Okay.
Second,
John seconds. Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor of approving the November 30th minutes?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing no opposed, it passes unanimously.
Okay, 5th and 7th.
I'm good with both of those. I read them. They're good as far as I'm concerned.
Any further discussion on those? Do you want to pull them up? Does anybody here to see them? They were pretty straightforward.
Yeah, I rather thought they were.
So
Just
I'll
trying to
make a
clear off
motion,
some
we
of this other
approve,
crap on my desktop here, that's all.
I'll make a
Okay.
motion, we approve the December 5th and December 7th minutes as they were distributed by Wendy.
Except I misspelled Tony's name on the 5th, but I fixed that, so.
Okay. I move we.
I have to abstain from the vote on the
Yes.
5th.
And
Oh,
so do
let's do
I.
them
I was not here on the
individually.
7th.
All right, so let's do them. I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of the 5th.
Second?
Second,
Yeah.
okay.
John seconds. Okay, any further discussion on the 5th? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay,
Any opposed? Okay, we move forward to the 7th. Okay, and again, we had a reduced quorum there, so somebody want to make a motion to approve that and we can further discuss if needed?
Yeah, I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of the 7th.
Okay,
Second,
okay. Of those who were present, any further discussion?
nope,
Any discussion from those who weren't present in terms of asking for clarification? Okay, no discussion. Okay, could I have a, let's just do a voice vote or roll call vote if we could. Jed,
Yes.
okay. Brian,
Yes.
Wendy,
yes,
and John, and Catherine isn't here, and John and Tony abstain. Okay.
I abstain from the 5th.
Oh, from the 5th. Excuse me. Okay.
I
Just don't
abstained
plead
from
the
this. I
fifth.
abstained from the 7th.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
aye,
Any opposed? Okay, we move forward.
goodness. Okay.
Okay,
alrighty.
the next item is review of public correspondence. Nothing has come in recently. I'm still pursuing the question that Ms. Tracy gave to us to identify what those cylinders are. I actually stopped below a Verizon bucket truck a couple of times, but the operator was actually up in the bucket, so I wasn't in a position to shout out to him and ask what they were. But I think that's easier than perhaps trying to call Verizon and ask.
I think that's I think that's a Comcast item.
Comcast,
I don't,
okay?
yeah, those cylinders are hanging on the Comcast cable. If it's
Yeah, I'd
the
have
ones
to
that we
see.
see all around town.
Can we ask for the, can we email this lady back and ask her to identify, the address that she saw, and I'll be happy to go take a look.
Yeah,
There
that'd
are
be,
some- you know.
I think that's how we have to proceed, Bob, is location and maybe a picture, but yeah, because we're speculating otherwise.
Pictures
Exactly.
would help, and the poll number too, because potentially we could just send an email over saying what's on this poll number.
Yeah.
Wendy, could I ask you to unshare your screen because you blocked everything off when you?
I'm so sorry, I'm trying to find the control to do that, and it doesn't seem to be
It's
It's
coming
where
up.
the share screen thing is, and it's.
Well, I understand that, but I'm
Oh.
not seeing the share screen
Oh.
thing here anymore,
Oh.
so.
So, anyway,
interesting.
Hit escape, maybe. We'll get you some more
Yeah,
options.
Yeah,
it's
let's
usually
try
the
that.
same. It's usually.
I know it, I know that, but it's usually right here at the bottom of the screen, but
No,
it's
it's
not
usually
there
to the
now.
right of the thing that you're sharing.
Well, that's not there
Top
either.
right. All right. let's-
Okay, tell you what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna sign out, but I'll be right back.
All right. He's right there.
All right, so
One way.
the only thing I'll mention, Brian, is that I don't think they all have poll numbers. I know the ones on my street don't. But regardless, I think it'd be a good idea to just ask it for the location. We can go out and look.
To me, it's a backhanded way of having them have to find the person with the poll information and have them email us back. So if there is a number on it,
Yeah, fine. I totally agree with the idea. I'm just saying that she may not provide one because of that.
Hmm.
So,
Yeah, it's possible it doesn't have a number on it for sure. I'm
oh,
sure our
there's,
polls are not compliant altogether in so many ways.
yeah.
I just note for the record that Jen McGrail just signed in, so I think we are now live on Bourne Community Television.
Yeah, could you chat with us, Jen? Let us know, because I also have it recording and I don't want to send you the recording if we don't have to. Okay,
Yes, we
thank
are.
you. All right, good to
Thank you
go.
very much.
So
Welcome.
I'm gonna kill the recording then.
Way of having them have to find the person with the poll information and have them email us back. So if there is a number on it,
Yeah, fine. I totally agree with the idea. I'm just saying that she may not provide one because of that. So,
yeah, it's possible it doesn't have a number on it for sure. I'm sure
oh,
our polls
there's,
are not compliant altogether in so many ways.
yeah.
I just note for the record that Jen McGrail just signed in, so I think we are now live on Bourne Community Television.
Yeah, could you chat with us, Jen? Let us know, because I also have it recording and I don't want to send you the recording if we don't have to. Okay,
we
thank
are.
you. All right, good
Thank
to
you very
go.
much.
So
Welcome.
I'm gonna kill the recording then.
Recording stopped.
All right. Okay.
Very good. Okay, well, the way forward here, what I will do is I'll get back to the lady and just ask for detailed information on the location of that. And then what I will do is I will try to contact, if it is Comcast, I will contact Mike Galla, who has contacted us obviously for the letter of support. I've now got his name and phone number, or his email address and phone number, and just ask for if he could identify it. And oh, by the way, did you actually go and apply for the grant and include Bourne in the grant? I may ask that question if that's if anybody is okay with that, since we have very little information other than they did apply. I think they applied for the grant. We just don't know whether we are named in it yet. Or they used
Bourne
our
wasn't
letter.
mentioned on the I'll wait to the tech council
Yeah,
agenda item.
Okay. So that's the next one. Let's move forward to liaison with the Technology Council Infrastructure Committee. Brian, is it the Infrastructure Committee or the Broadband Committee, or is it one a sub of the other?
I think I end up on both of them, so I'll have to double check which of the two it was the other day. But GoNetspeed was on there, Comcast dropped in, OpenCape dropped in. Comcast started bragging about how they're rolling out 10G service in one of the towns in the Outer Cape, and then I start pressing them a little bit, and it's going to be mid splits. And I was like, well, any mid split deployment we've seen is about 125, and he starts arguing, no, it's 200. So they're basically going around telling everybody they're rolling out 10 gig service, and don't know what they're talking about. So I asked them to get a list of the technology that they plan to be deploying where, and we can run it by engineers to see what that can actually do, instead of the marketing people just going around bragging that it's 10G and it's not 10G.
Yeah, just a question to the tech people on the committee for clarification. Is there any kind of an industry standard of 10G like there is for 5G, or is it 10 gig, or is it just blowing smoke?
Well, 5G, there's no industry standard on 5G either, or 4G. They're all marketing terms.
I mean,
sorry,
they mean faster speed, but what they say and the specifics of it are depending on the vendor.
What,
So
I'm sorry, Brian, that was Verizon you were talking to?
So Comcast, they were going around saying
Comcast.
they're rolling out 10 gig
Yeah,
to people, and as I start pressing them on some details, it's 100 to 200 meg up. So it's they're just I don't know how their lawyers are blessing these statements. They're so false. So I had to ask them, but I said just send us a list of the actual technology being deployed, and we'll run it by some engineers that know what this stuff is and can do. They also had Go Net Speed on there. There was a vote, which I abstained from, but to approve a letter of support for Go Net Speed's One Touch Make Ready proposal to the state. We grilled them a little bit about how it would work with the approved contractors, since that was a concern people had emailed, or Tony had emailed me. And so they said there's a process to add new approved contractors. If for some reason there's not enough of these contractors who are ready to do the work, it'll take a little longer to get a new one approved, but they said they've had to do it in other places when they've had, only one available and they're one ridiculous rates. So they've had to do it themselves in other jurisdictions. So they're leaving that in the regulation for their own benefit as well. And so whatever letter the tech council is going to circulate, I said I'd run it by the committee and run it by the select board to add a signature of support to it. I don't think we need to write our own letter when they're going to probably have one that encompasses everything we're going to need.
Okay. Any further discussion or questions for Brian on tech council activities? What is, other than the regular monthly meetings, is there anything on the agenda coming up this month that we should be aware of?
Don't usually warn me too far in advance. Let me see if I've got anything.
Yeah, I've noticed that too. Usually you get the email 3 days ahead with the agenda. 'Cause I'm on the same committee.
I'll reach out to Steve now it's a new year. He's good people and see what's on his mind right now and what's coming up, so we can plan who should be available depending on what the needs are.
Okay. Any
But
further?
they didn't mention Bourne. Comcast the name Bourne didn't slip out of their mouth in any of their discussion. It was other towns that they were mentioning, so we may or may not be on their list.
Oh, okay. We may not be on their low-hanging fruit list. That's in terms of the most revenue that they can squeeze out when they apply for these grants, and they can probably get that from other towns. Okay, any further discussion on anything related to the Tech Council? Okay, the next item is liaison with any committees in other towns.
So the only thing going on is Falmouth, and they're going through and interviewing the RFI respondents. So they've been having a series of meetings. And then, like I mentioned earlier, they have the request for services. Those are all the responses are due January 15th. The only other town that's doing any meeting is Wellfleet, and they're just slowly muddling along, building out the 3 beaches.
Okay. We'll just keep track of that.
I got a note back from Sam Patterson thanking us for sending all our stuff along and noting that the gentleman that does the pots and pans
Doug
webcast,
Dawson.
Dawson, is the one that did Falmouth's feasibility study originally.
Yep.
So
Yep.
they're real familiar with that.
Yeah. Question, was that gentleman, was he on, what was the precursor here, Falmouth Net? Is that
No.
what? Okay.
No, Doug was hired by Falmouth Net as a contractor. And we have a copy of the feasibility study if anybody wants to see it.
Yep.
I think I sent it out.
Yeah, just out of curiosity, what did that feasibility study cost? Do we have any idea?
It's in the tens of thousands. I know if we asked Mary Harris, she could give us the quote.
Okay.
She's the one who headed it up.
Okay. Okay, anything further on any activities in any other towns? I'll get to Mass Broadband Coalition further down. Okay. Media outreach. Wendy, do you have any draft articles or anything that you wanted to provide to the enterprise that we should look over here?
I sent them a copy of Doug's latest uh over because it talked a lot about the sorts of things that we're talking about today, but I haven't created anything else because there hadn't been anything else to create. We haven't been
Right.
meeting, and Callie's on vacation until tomorrow, I think, anyway.
Okay. Just
And I did send out a ton of stuff to all the expanded mailing list, which is the legislative group, and I think Sam Patterson wanted to get copies, and anybody else you want me to put on that list?
any additions to that outreach list?
Hold on, I've got some names. I was told that might be helpful to our cause.
Okay.
So these are media people?
No politicians.
Yeah, that counts. Go ahead and give them to me, and I'll add
Give me a
them
couple
on.
of minutes. I'm sifting through emails from.
So is this the stuff, do we send the stuff out on behalf of the committee?
We had approval that as soon as our minutes were approved, they could go out
Oh,
without
yeah,
without
yeah.
further ado.
Yep, yep.
And
Anything
they're,
approved by the committee is fine, sure.
yeah, they're pretty comprehensive.
It's public, anything that's public information, sure. All right,
Right. And as I said, I put up excerpts or total things from Doug's columns on the Bourne list, and I've gotten some decent feedback on those. People are surprised, shall we say, as to some of the things he is uncovering, or at least describing.
all right.
I've been told Ed Markey is on the committee that is involved with broadband for the state, so he'd be receptive ears to anything we want to.
Okay, I put him on the list.
And apparently Elizabeth Warren, but I'm not sure why that's a recommendation to reach out to. I don't
She's
have
not-
any.
I don't think she's on anything related to telecommunications, any committee that I'm aware of.
But she's got a real active staff. They'll get their fingers in anything they can.
I mean, I don't see any reason not to send it to the senators, to
Mhm,
Keating, and to the full Cape Cod delegation.
mhm.
You have Maria Leva on there, yes?
I don't remember off the top of my head. Let me look.
Probably a good idea because she can send things out to the business community. If we have to say crowdfund some consultant work, given the constraints of the government procurement process, in case it's going to be private donations.
No, I do not have her on that list, but we will add her in.
If you can't find her email address, just let me know. Because
Yeah,
I had been sending her material, and she's asked me the odd question here and there. So
Okay, do you have it off the top of your head?
I think it's let me look it on the phone. Emoliva at ccchamber.org. One moment.
Chamber.
CC Canal Chamber. One moment.
CC.
Give me 1 second here to pull it up.
I'll forward it to you, Wendy.
Thank you, dear.
I texted to you. Facebooked. Reference. Emailed.
It's Oliva at CapeCodCanalChamber.org.
Got
All
it.
one word.
Okie doke. And I'll get Ed and Liz on there also. Anybody else from the State House or any other contacts? Brian, you can shoot those over to me.
If I get told anybody else who is interested in these topics, I will let you know.
Or useful, yeah.
Just one question to the committee. Do you think it's advisable to request Wendy to send a short article to the Enterprise, just informing them that we're going to have a comprehensive report towards the end of January, and an oral report to the select board, just for anybody who's interested, just to give them a heads up to
Mhm.
be ready for that meeting?
Yeah, I think
I would, once we have
Yeah.
it scheduled.
Yeah, it's in the meeting minutes, certainly, but we all know they're not going to read those, so I can send that out separately. Do we have a date for that?
Well, that's what I'm
Um,
saying, is until we have a date, I wouldn't put anything in the enterprise.
Well, what I'd like to do is perhaps get it drafted and approved by the committee, sans the date, minus the official.
Great
date,
idea. Yeah,
and
that's
then
a great idea.
and we can just send it when I guess MJ tells me what the likely date for that is.
Great idea.
Yeah.
we want to drum up a crowd because I think that's going to be more informative than some of the technical stuff that we've been doing, in the interim, because kind of dry and boring going through MBI regulation versus like a higher level picture might be more interesting to the public.
Mhm.
Okay.
Would it be of some value to, if we do, once we post the article, to ask that if people are interested to email our public address with any comments? For instance, if
Sure.
people, have, been like, I've been trying to get my internet service working for 3 years,
Mhm.
and that kind of thing, because we could maybe incorporate some of those comments. Because again, I mean, the whole point of this committee was that Comcast and the FCC are saying, "Oh, everything's fine," and we know that everything is definitely not fine.
Yeah, maybe to say we're starting the process of drafting, this, and we really would like public comment so that it can be
Email it to our town address, and we can at least perhaps include some of those in the record.
Mhm.
Yeah, and I can also put that up on the Bourne Facebook list because I think there are probably more people read that than go to the town website.
They do it. It's been busy the last couple of weeks.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
If I'm going to put that on Facebook, can I put that on as an official publication of the committee once it's approved?
Yeah, after it's approved, anything
Okay.
it's public.
Okay. Okie doke.
Okay. Are we done with media outreach? Any further comments? Anything else we should be doing?
Mr. Maloney, have any suggestions on that? No? Your mic is off.
I was gonna wait until the next one because I was waiting for the speed test update, and that's when I was gonna ask about public input.
Okay,
Okay.
then.
Okay.
Thank you, though.
Okay, with that, there's nothing to approve here, so we move forward to the speed test update. First of all, just some more information on the speed testing that's has been or is being done in New Bedford, and the contractor that was hired by New Bedford. Apparently, that contractor, Sean Gross in DC, and I can't remember the name of his company, and it doesn't matter because he's changing it anyway. It's a generic digital something company. He looks like, I think he's a one-person shop. The testing that he has done, and Gary, just for your information, the testing that New Bedford has been doing, what they got was a contractor to give the school system an app that would go into every middle school kid's whatever. And they have about 2,000 middle school kids, and Bourne has 400 on that order, and we would like to do the same. But apparently that was all done with a private donation, and the donation is extremely Bourne specific. It's the CEO of Qualcomm, grew up in New Bedford, keeps New Bedford close to his heart, and he donated a substantial sum of money for that and for a number of other IT related activities, connectivity activities in New Bedford. So they paid for that study. He also paid for Gross and perhaps another consultant to prepare a gap network application for the town directly, including putting up any some of the bonding and co-funding that went in for that. So it's nice to have a
angel.
source of funding who can,
Yeah.
just has $20 million in his back pocket, perhaps, or something like that, and in the millions at least, that he could pledge towards this activity. So right now, we are not in a position. We have no funds to go forward with any detailed speed testing. We know that ongoing speed testing data are being fed to both the Cape Cod Commission and to MBI, but do not know much more about what MBI, frankly, is willing to accept that are not using their standard test. Does anyone else have any information on that?
No, we've been asking what the standard tests are going to be for a year and a half, and gotten silence.
I asked that. I sent a phone request in to Josh Eichen at MBI and just asked what the status of that was for Bourne, and as usual, never got a response from them. So I don't know where we can go with that. It looks like if somebody can remind me of the exact schedule that the speed testing, et cetera, for Bede is going forward with, but the testing period is going to be in June and July.
June 15th. Yeah. Well,
there are going to
June
be some other
15th is
milestones that come up earlier in the spring.
I believe June
So
15th is the
if
deadline
we're
for
going to
the.
do speed testing. We have to find a way to get money to pay a contractor to do that. I don't think Oliver didn't indicate any willingness or any resources to be able to do that alone for the school system. So
Did he
unless
tell you how
anybody else
much?
has any other intelligence on that.
Did he tell you how much?
Wendy, you're muted. You seem to be.
Really?
No, I
That's
can
No,
hear
no,
it.
no, no. You're
No,
your problem,
your
Bob.
speaker's not working. But Wendy, it's in the mid tens of thousands.
Can anybody hear Wendy?
We
Yeah.
can
Yes.
hear everybody, but you can't hear anybody.
Well, I can't hear anybody.
Dear me. But the reason I ask is if do you think we could go hand in hand to Maria Oliva and see if she could get like a donations from various businesses
Not-
that
I
could
don't
go
think
into that pot?
I don't
via
think
my
that
cell
kind of
phone,
money.
because for whatever reason my sound is completely dead here. I have no idea why.
So
Yeah.
Wendy, I
Minutes here.
don't know that they would put up $50,000 roughly speaking.
Well, if you ask enough people for 1,000, you might get 50.
You might, yeah, I suppose, but
I don't know where else we're going to get the money from to do it.
well, you could do a
know.
town meeting warrant.
Yeah, but that's not till May, and we're not going to have time for that.
Yeah.
It's worth an ask,
Mhm.
you know? But yes, Mr. Maloney, what?
Can Mr.
Gary, I'll
Dwyer
be
hear
here in
us?
a minute. I cannot hear
I'm
anybody.
waiting.
But I believe this data would be critical for us to prove that there is indeed an issue.
Totally.
And maybe we can't get something done through the town as far as funding through a warrant or whatever in time for this summer, but I think maybe on a parallel path, we could seek to get funding from the town to do this type of this testing program.
Oh, I see. Even if it wouldn't make the beat challenge, it's good to have regardless.
Yeah, I think we really need that data.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it as part of a broader effort. In other words, if we were to move ahead and do a feasibility study, then I think that including that as part of the effort would make a lot of sense.
And to get a skilled contractor through the procurement process would be helpful, because sometimes these grants come so fast, no one can react to it. So
Totally.
getting any work approved with any of these available consultants would be a start. We couldn't react to GAP because they announced it. The applications are due like 3-4 weeks from the announcement date, and the requirements are so onerous, not like almost nobody qualified. Yet New Bedford managed to pull it off because they had a
You're on mute, Bob, on both devices.
Technology.
There you go.
Uh,
The phone's on.
Okay, the phone is on.
All right.
Okay.
Can
Okay,
you hear
Verizon
us?
came through where Comcast has failed miserably. Okay.
So where we left off, basically, I was just mentioning to Wendy that Sean's quote came in the mid 10,000s, and she's suggesting we go to the chamber for the money.
I'm suggesting that we ask Marie to see the wisdom of getting this data collected and how critical it is, and suggesting that maybe she could solicit donations from chamber members. They don't, we're not looking. We would love to have an angel who would give us 50, but if she could get 40 people who would give us 1,200, or something like that, that every little bit helps.
yeah, because if the minimum to do the bare minimum, I'm not saying this is good, to initiate an area challenge would end up being, what was it like? Can't remember the number, is it 5 or 8 parcels per census block, times the 5 in town. So you need 30, 40, 50 Raspberry Pis, a few $100 each.
You
You
don't
could
need any
probably,
Raspberry Pis.
we can do it with software.
That's required. You have to do it with software.
Okay.
If you look at the list, you can either do it with software or you have to get the reading off of the network equipment.
Okay. Well, what I will do is I will make a call to Marie and just broach the subject to her.
Okay.
Her past comments to me is that she's been very happy that this committee has gotten off the ground, and she thinks that it's certainly attracted the interest, for instance, of Open Cape. So they've basically served her members in town in Buzzards Bay Village, and she doesn't know whether that's because of us breathing down their neck or just in general that they were doing that. But she's pleased that this activity is going on. So we'll see what the business community would like to help as we go forward here.
And if we had better service, we'd have a bigger business community because people would want to come and work here.
Exactly.
And that would benefit the chamber as well.
Oh, Gary, so you probably don't have the background. We have data from, so what happened is Microsoft tracks how long it takes everyone to download a Windows update nationwide. And then they anonymize this data just a little bit and then release it. And so you can tell by a fairly large area where has bad internet nationwide. And so the Cape Cod Commission has taken this data and showed us basically which zip codes have the problem. And so we know Buzzards Bay is generally fine.
That was gonna be my question.
Sagamore Beach isn't great, but it's once you cross the canal, it starts getting bad. And Pocasset's really bad. Katamet, Monument Beach is borderline, but still bad. And the way they've looked at the data, they said the more seasonal it is, the worse the signal is.
Mm-hmm.
And the closer to the water you get, the worse it is.
Mm-hmm.
And that generally makes sense since the fiber runs along the highways. And, once you switch to copper, the longer you go from it, generally the signal degrades, but that's not the whole picture. There's other things that can go wrong in that. But some components degrade with distance, others do not.
Thank you. I've been following your discussions through your Zoom meetings and over the cable TV channel locally. So I have some of the knowledge with the speed testing in New Bedford and the things that were coming along, but I let you keep going just so it'd be in the meeting in general that other people can hear that information today.
So there's a whole process to prove that it's bad and we can get money released to fix it. But the problem is where do you get the money to get the data to prove that you got the problem?
So that was part of my follow on was I've been, and I'm sure other people have used your social media posts to perform their own speed test data to provide it either to the Cape Cod Commission or some other entity. So where is that data? Where was my data that I tested 5 or 6 devices, unfortunately, here in Buzzards Bay? And I'm just trying to figure out a little bit through this discussion where my data went and exactly which neighborhoods have the problem, whether this is a town problem or a village problem.
It's village
So
problem.
you asked a
village
good question
problems?
is we don't directly have access to those speed tests. So there's two of them. There's the MVI speed test and the Cape Cod Commission speed test. The Cape Cod Commission, we should probably formally ask them for access. They recently were able to give me access to the Ookla database, but it took several weeks for like licensing requirements, but they're fairly helpful. So we should probably just ask them to start whatever process that for that. MBI is generally unresponsive. There's only like 5 people over there. So, unless you're a big name politician, they won't generally answer your emails. But as you found,
as
Bob,
I said, I had called a call into Josh Eichen before Christmas to ask, and got no response.
Well, I've got a new tactic with MBI. I found their records access officer, and they have to respond to that email address for formal records requests.
Uh-huh.
I'm going to put this up for so that you can just see what this is from our presentation that we did to the select board. This was from some initial information that Brian was able to parse out of Microsoft. Am I correct? And,
I can't take credit for this. I did a little editing, but it was the Cape Cod Commission. David Still over there, a lovely fellow. He's just gifted at taking these large, boring data sets and turning into very helpful charts.
Right. So you can see there, Gary, that what we've got here. This is basically where we started, and this is not. This is not what Comcast will tell you, but this is what we know the situation is, not just from this data, but also from all the social media stuff that we see all the time regarding problems. So, and of course, it becomes multiplied many times over once you hit June. That's when it really gets bad. So, just to let you know, that's kind of where we started.
Right, I agree. I mean, but I still don't even know what speed we're chasing. I have no clue because even at the beginning of your meeting today, you said, well, there's really no industry standard. Okay. So
well,
what speed, even though I got great speed in Buzzards Bay, what am I chasing?
I think I can answer that.
Yeah.
I can answer that. So the standards don't matter so much as we're trying to prove that the service we have is unreliable, that the speed doesn't matter. So we need to replace it with fiber that's at least 1 gigabyte up and down, or right around 1 gig. So 1 gig will generally be good for now and many years into the future for most non, as long as you aren't running an office with multiple people, it's probably fine. And if a network's built right, they'll have a few extra fibers for like bigger companies that need something a little beefier, and you just run them on a separate fiber on a separate service for a lot more money. So 1 gig is good. 1 gig up and down would be a good speed.
Right.
Anything less than that, it's not future proof.
Right. So, what the FCC is saying right now is that the minimum is 100 megabit down and 20 megabit up, which a lot of people can't achieve in many of the villages in Bourne. But ideally, what we're looking for is a minimum of at least 100 up and 200 down. And that is a real challenge for the way that Comcast has designed their system. It just isn't built to work that way. It's built to heavily favor downloads, which is a real problem, particularly if you're in the business community and you need to ship large files or back up large files. It makes it difficult. Also, they've got a real issue with the speed of the system in terms of the delay times involved. The Comcast system is proven to be inadequate in many areas, and so we're just trying to get them to bring it up to standard, or hopefully get Verizon in here, because we know that FiOS is capable of much higher numbers than Comcast is supplying at the moment, particularly with regard to upload speed.
What Comcast's highest plan does 35 up. So they'll brag about like 1.2 down or the 1 gig down, but it's the bottleneck is always the upload speed. And most people, were fine with that until they started Zoom calling and, doing things that required more upload. And it very quickly became apparent during the pandemic to everyone that the upload speed is the number you got to keep the eyes on.
I'm not trying to be a shill for Comcast, but things are Comcastic right here in my neighborhood in Buzzards Bay. I'm having no difficulties.
Oh,
Now,
yeah.
did I have to upgrade my own internal equipment? Yes. Did I have to get on Comcast to replace the cable line running from the pole across the street that was there for 40 years? Yes. But I got it. And I don't know what other people have in their homes. So since we're having a town issue, I'd like to know what speed the town is chasing. Not what Comcast can deliver, not what another provider can deliver. What are we looking at for our basic level of service?
I
Because
think
until we
what
know
they're,
that, I don't know what we're even trying to pay.
well,
So
I
actually,
think,
can I,
that's what they have us for, is to tell them what they ought to be looking for. I
So
could
the
just,
first-
on a strictly,
It's like a
on a
grandmother
strictly
next door.
on a strictly anecdotal basis, I'm in Pecasset, and there are times when I can barely participate in this,
I understand that.
and
I understand that.
and I run the speed test and I get like, 1, 2,
Right. And I run
6.
that same speed test over Comcast equipment and I'm paying for 100 and I get 100.
Yeah,
Now, if I was
well,
paying
Yeah,
for
so Gary, that's
200
the
a
first
gig,
thing we have to
boom.
address. We have to first have to address. So, take a look at John. You want to bring the chart back up again?
Yeah, sure. Hang on. Let me do
Yeah.
that.
So
Okay.
this is a common discussion. Is people in Buzzards Bay are going like, "What's the problem? Like, what's the big deal?" Versus people in Pocasset are going like, "Oh my God, like you don't know what's the big deal." And so, what's going on here is Buzzards Bay basically has equipment that works as designed, whereas Sagamore, Beach, Pocasset, Cottahummett, Buzzards Bay has equipment that isn't working as designed. So even if they have the cutting edge router in their home, even if you harass Comcast to update the wires, you have the newest modem and all that, it will never operate correctly. They've got too many people on the nodes. They've got very old equipment with very poor ability to deliver the signal. It's night and day different technology being used on the other side of the canal. Otherwise, the signal would be much better in the Cape side. So right now, people can't rely on the internet because it will just go down. So we'll have calls where we typically will lose people once or twice on the call just that are in Pocasset because the signal just dies. Whereas, if the data is showing this doesn't happen in Buzzards Bay. So it's speed is one factor, but also reliability is another. 35 up isn't useful for anybody anymore. Even, in Buzzards Bay, I'm glad it's working for you, but generally people, even when it's working as designed, 35 is not enough for the modern world. You need at
I have to
least
disagree.
100.
I have to disagree. My wife's working for Hertz right now upstairs in an office while I'm on a Zoom call with you.
yeah,
That's
but
right.
you are not
30
in Pecasset, Gary.
No,
You just said Buzzards Bay, it wasn't good enough. That's
No,
why
I'm
I
talking
said
about the
No.
35 up. 35 up is fine for 90% of the people today.
Gary,
agree
look
in
at
the
the,
future.
For today,
Gary,
yeah. For
Look at
today, for 90%.
one-
Like I'm the 10% that 35 won't cut it.
Right, yeah, I agree with that, but for the vast majority of people, 35 up is going to be fine.
Gary.
And so when you're
you will
building,
notice that
for 5 to
there-
10 years
there-
out.
There are
No,
two-
not arguing that point. No, I'm talking about the current, I agree with you in the future, but the current situation of 35 up satisfies most of the town right now. The bigger issue is reliability, as you were alluding to, Brian. I don't think speed's the issue right now.
Gary, you'll
And
notice that
that's
there
what
are
I'm getting
two
at as well,
lines
Miss
for
Allen.
Buzzards Bay. There are two
Well-
lines on this thing for Buzzards Bay. One is 02532, which is where
Correct.
you live. The other is 02542, which is on this side of the canal.
Correct.
And that's so you can't say, well, Buzzards Bay is fine everywhere, because that part of Buzzards Bay sucks.
Well-
That's what we're talking about here.
And by sucks, I guess what I'm trying to get is Mr. Johnson's opinion of him saying right now, kind of echoed what I said a little bit, is what are we chasing? 35 up is good enough right now. Are you
Correct.
chasing 10 years down the road? 50 years down the
yes.
road? I
No,
don't know.
I think to
I'd
Brian's
like somebody to
point,
plant the
we're-
flag and let me know what we're doing.
so I
You
think
know,
to Brian's point is that we need to look at 10 to 30 years down the road and where the technology is going to go. And the cable, the HFC technology is probably going to not make it in the long run, right? That's kind of been his point, and I kind of agree that in the long run, it's going to have to be an all fiber network. But we're talking 10, 20 years. That's where we're looking.
Yeah, these have
And if you-
these things have 40-year life. So when you fix
Right.
them, it's what you get for the next 40 years. So you kind of have to, you know, because what we have, because they don't want to upgrade it because it's got to be upgraded. And we would love to have this already be at the same equipment that you have in Buzzards Bay, but they don't deploy that on the Cape side. So
Just
it
to
just doesn't work.
just
We aren't getting 35 because it dies.
just to point out again, Buzzards Bay, at least north of the canal, is now triply served, and evidently Comcast puts a premium on maintaining their equipment in Buzzards Bay. They again, the speeds that Verizon is offering there are 800 to a gig all the time with good reliability. And apparently that is what they're installing south of the canal in Gray Gables and Monument Beach. And they're going to be able to make money at $70 a month service by offering that kind of technology. So if they're putting that technology in, presumably they want it to last. As Brian said, this is a long-term investment. This is like building a school. It's going to last for 30 or 50 years. So if they can do it, then presumably other competitors should be able to do it, except that Comcast is wedded to this old technology right now.
Gary, let me give you another perspective, because I lived in the Metro West area of Boston for over 40 years and was here just part-time, and now I've been full-time for the last year and a half. And up where I lived in Natick, Mass, we had, three providers. We had RCN, we had Comcast, and we had Verizon. And all three of them delivered service which is so far superior to what we have here. One of our issues with Comcast is the fact that we know what they are capable of. But I mean, as a technical person, I can tell you that the quality of what they were doing up in my old neighborhood in Natick was very, very competitive. They weren't quite as good as Verizon, but it was pretty good and pretty reliable. And I knew a number of people that had it. And I actually was involved with Comcast working on a professional level with a 1 gig bidirectional service. The Verizon stuff was impeccably good. I mean, over 20 years of use, and we never had a fiber failure. Never. When you look around here, and I've done a lot of hiking around areas, particularly close to the beach or up in Bob's neighborhood. The quality of the infrastructure, literally, when you look at it and the way they have things interconnected, it is 1980s technology and worse. Basically, there's a long history of the companies that own the cable franchise on this side of the bridge in Bourne.
I agree.
And they have changed nothing. And the result is that it is, it may have been adequate 10 years ago, but it has fallen very far behind, and it's very fragile. So you get, certain incidences happening, weather related failures and the like. It's ridiculous that some of the taps that I see on poles are using what we would call indoor rated splitters. So you put that next to the ocean, and it's only a matter of time before
I agree.
this stuff breaks down. Right. So this is where we have an issue, and where we are trying to get either the town through an MLP or these various suppliers, ISPs, to put in something that's a little bit more future-proof, which is the way you design, as Jed, who did this for a living, and I did too. You don't design things to work today. You say, I want to design it so that X many years in the future, it is still a viable technology. You don't buy a computer today with just the very bare minimum. You try to buy a computer that, hey, 10 years from now, it's maybe at that point going to become out of date, but up to then it'll work fine. What we have here is stuff that's fallen so far behind. It's ridiculous. And the problem is that we think it's not only affecting, we know it's affecting people personally, be that from their standpoint of having medical needs or educational needs, and certainly from a business standpoint, it's also not very good. And we know from Tony and his experiences with an MLP in Westfield, that when you put in make good fiber broadband available, it attracts businesses. It makes it very easy, for one thing, for people to work remotely, and secondly, it just makes it terrific for any business that has to be interconnected, which they all do these days, to operate here rather than on trying to operate on the kind of island that we have, which is just it's really despicable. It's just that basically the Comcast has in my opinion been ignoring us because they're looking at the return on investment and saying it's just not there. What they would have to spend to update would cost them a great deal of money, and we're hoping that with Verizon perhaps edging in, either the competition will force them to do it, or Verizon will come in and offer a better product, or perhaps even Open Cape will decide to make more facilities available so that we have a chance of coming into the 21st century here. Because it's like I look at this stuff and it's like this is what I used to see in the 80s, and it's bad. So that's kind of where we are right now, and we're hoping. I mean, it's obvious to us because a number of the towns have been approaching the idea of putting in their own municipal light plant model, which means the town would own the fiber and be essentially the internet service provider, perhaps through a third party, but they would basically be the ISP. And all of a sudden, there's all this interest from all these other companies like, oh, yeah, well, we're going to talk about improving because they feel some kind of competitive pressure. So that's what we're trying to do, is get it the more the merrier.
John,
I'm kind of curious what you're running right now. Like you said, you have two people on video calls simultaneously. I'm just doing like a little calculation of the data.
My wife has to do video calls upstairs with her sales. She's on the phone right now with her sales.
Okay.
I'm down here on this Zoom meeting having no problem. I can fire up a TV or two and start streaming on my Fire Stick as well if you'd like. I did
Jed,
all those things simultaneously for that.
Jed, what does each Zoom run? How much does each Zoom take for bandwidth?
About maybe 5 megabits per second, maybe 6 upstream.
So if I want me to turn, I mean, I'm not going to do that. I already did that with my
part of it is figuring out exactly what people need now and then what they're going to need in 40 years. So I'm always kind of curious. The people that say they have good service, it's also a helpful data point to figure out, where is the network good and what they're running. So you're running, 2 Zoom calls and maybe 2
I could have,
Netflix.
If I wanted to right now, I'm not going to go fire up 5 TVs. I have them in the house. I have 5.
So how much is a Netflix, Jed? He's probably got a standard definition.
So the Netflix depends. So this is so the
high definition TVs all around 4K.
Right, but high definition is not an issue. High definition on.
Can I make a comment? Would it make sense to make a subcommittee for this? I mean, we're really getting in the weeds here.
Yeah, we've got a lot
Thank
to
you,
do
Tony.
yet, and this is
so I have just one quick point to make. So the current definition of broadband is 25.3. So this chart is showing that only 15% of the Cape side of Buzzards Bay gets 25 down and 3 up. So the stuff you listed, Gary, would crash. Because you're already listing, you're listing more than you're listing 10 or 15 megabit up in data, and right now, most of the Cape side could not handle that without the internet going down.
And that's
Gary, just as an example, I'm not able to stream anything at home. Okay, I cannot stream movies because it crashes 4 times during a movie. I have Amazon Prime. It's the only thing I have left. And my wife, when I attempt something, will walk out of the room the first time it crashes and said, "This is hopeless."
That's why we're speaking a totally different language than at these meetings and when people listen to you.
Well,
I can literally have my kids playing Minecraft, another one on another stupid game on another device, and every TV fired up.
Good for you, but most of us can't do that. My husband can't look at his email when I'm at this meeting.
So what are you chasing? What number are you chasing? That was my initial question that you then took.
And if it's whatever
it comes down to doing the speed tests. We got to get the speed test data for the different sections of the town. If the town wants to do this, maybe in the future they could put some line item budget items into the budget. Maybe $75,000 a year or something like that, so that we can try and move forward in a comprehensive manner. The lack of data is causing all this discussion. And I think there are some areas of the town that we would consider adequate for the time being, and there are quite a few that are not. And that's what we need the data to show. What is the extent of the problem?
Okay, I'm gonna terminate this right now, and just the two action items I have. Brian, if you could you contact David Still and ask for his latest update on the Cape Cod Commission speed test data. And if you could, Brian, if you could forward me the what was it, the public information officer for MBI, I'll with permission of the committee, I will make a formal request to them for the current Bourne data that they have available from the speed testing ongoing.
Yes, I'll forward you the access officer, and just note it's always better to request early because they have a 10 business day window to respond. And but yeah, I'll send you all those details.
Just a point to follow up on something. This is something that Jed sent me. That a lot of the industry larger providers like Google Fiber have proposed 100 megabit bidirectional service to the FCC as being the minimum rather than 120, which I think is a very good starting point. And basically, the National Cable and Television Association came out strongly against that. So just so you know, that's where that is right now. So that's where a lot of industry experts are saying 100 bidirectional should be the minimum, and that would certainly be a number that I would be comfortable to compromise with.
Just to let you know, the letters of support that we gave to Verizon and to Comcast were both 100, I think.
Yes.
Both specified 100, 100. That's
Yeah,
for the
today
support for the GAT
today.
network grant. Okay. Okay, moving forward. Okay, let's see.
Select board presentation update.
Yes. Let's see. John, I guess you're the one who put up the speed test results. Can you drop that?
Yeah, I'm trying to do that right now. Hang on a minute. I have to get back. I'm trying to get back to that page, and it's not letting me. Let's see. I'll tell you what. I will leave it and log back in again, so that I can do that. Hang on. Okay, so all right. So
while that's going on, yeah. As soon as he releases that, Tony, just as a starting point, could you put up that very nice list of achievements or accomplishments that you prepared in early December?
Yeah, let me dig that up. Yeah, this was just an attempt to at least make a list of what we've done so far. Let's see. Okay, is it up?
don't see it.
Not yet.
Oh, I thought I shared the screen. Let's see. Here it is. How about now?
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, very nice.
Okay.
Beautiful.
Yeah, I'm a rookie at this stuff. But anyways, all I did really was go through a lot of the meeting minutes and look at what we went through for the first quarter or so. And I don't think you really want to hear me read all these.
No, it just I think it's just a really, really nice compendium, and you know, at the very least, we have to prepare both a written report and an oral presentation to the select board. And my guess is that we're probably, in terms of presentation time, not going to have more than 15 minutes on the agenda. And MJ told me that would likely be the first meeting in February, but no promises, just because of the press of other things. So that would be the time that we could do that. I think what we might be able to do in terms of a presentation, since it'd be me on the platform, is just take each of these and just list them as bullet points on 1 or 2 slides without going through those in detail. For most of them, again, we are advising the select board, so they know what we've been doing. And it's just a matter of kind of a little bit of exposition for anybody else in the audience who is listening. But I think at least in terms of the issues addressed, I think that would be at least a very nice appendix to the report itself, or one chapter in the report itself.
Yeah, always good to remind the very busy executives what you've done. So.
Mhm.
Yeah, my thoughts in general on this, and I've started to put some notes together, but I think what we should use kind of as an organizing framework is the actual charter. The individual items that are listed in the charter, and to the extent maybe sort these out underneath each one of those as appropriate. And I have not started doing that yet. I think just my ideas are, again, because I'm going to have to be up there presenting this, is to break it down into kind of 3 things. Here's our charter. Okay, here's where we've been. Here's where we are right now, and here's our recommendations on where we should be going for the town. I have a whole list of notes I've been putting together, and it's not quite ready for prime time here, but I've got 2 pages of notes. As I was traveling, I kind of assembled, and I just rapidly typed those in, complete with errors. I don't want to present those. But we've got 15 minutes to make our point up there in terms of presenting this verbally to the select board, the audience, anybody watching on Zoom or TV. And I think there are a number, a kind of a SWOT approach: strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats might work for where we are now and where we should be going. Has anybody used that kind of approach in making presentations to management at all? Any thoughts on it?
I think one thing one question that's going to come up in any of these discussions with the select board is going to be money. Do we have any idea of a ballpark figure of seed money we would need should we explore the idea of a town-owned MLP?
Mm-hmm.
And we might even have like a prioritized wish list. And if right now what we need is 50 grand for a study, or for getting software into the middle school Chromebooks or something like that, just give them a list. Because I'm pretty sure that when they constituted this committee, they never thought about money. And now it's time for them to start thinking about money.
Well, I'll just throw these out verbally for you. And again, my scribbling isn't ready for prime time here. It will be by next week. But there may, it just seemed to me that we're going to get the recommendations from the digital equity planning study from the commission, or something close to it. And that may have recommendations that are going to require funding. I think we can probably get an idea of what those are early on before we get to the actual presentation at the beginning of February. We've got an idea of what it's going to cost probably to do a middle school speed testing and get a report back. I think we ought to think about a feasibility study, such that they did in Falmouth, to look what it would cost anybody to put fiber on all of the poles. That probably would should include something that has some kind of preliminary pro forma financials for what it would look like going forward.
Mhm.
Yeah, Bob,
Uh,
did you see the one I sent out that they did in Cambridge?
I
I
did.
just
It was
glanced.
very, very
Yeah.
good.
Yeah,
I,
that
I,
one is ideal.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Because
the one
that
they
looks
did.
at, that would, it looked like they were speaking to people within the town or city itself to find out, what is a real need for this? Is there a lot of hunger for this? And, one of the big components of this is penetration. How many customers are you
Hmm.
actually going to be able to get if you do put a system like this out there to pay
Is
for?
the
Mhm.
Bourne Select Board going to be able to relate to Cambridge?
Well, the quality of the work
It's not-
Yeah, it's the
product is what
structure of the report.
It's
It's
the
not
outline. It's
Cambridge.
the outline of the report that I'm contrasting the outline of the report that was done for Falmouth and the one that was done for Cambridge. The Cambridge
Mm.
one did include financials. The Falmouth one did not, for example.
Mhm.
And I think we need, like Tony said, we need better data. And I think penetration is going to matter neighborhood by neighborhood. So like we need very granular speed data for both the grant funding and for figuring out likely penetration data, since that will kind of dictate what some of the options are based on how much the uptake's going to be, how much the demand is. So really
I
good
agree.
data is going to be necessary no matter what outcome.
Absolutely. Okay. Well, again, it would seem that the easiest way to get comprehensive townwide data, presuming there are still going to be gaps in whatever people send in to MBI or the Cape Cod Commission, is this middle school testing program.
Mhm.
So it would seem that we probably ought to do a priority to get some small seed money right away without going to town meeting to do that. I think Gross's study in New Bedford cost about $30,000 to do 2,000 middle schoolers, I should say. If we're at 400, I don't think it's proportional, but I think on the order of 10,000 would be probably something relatively reasonable.
I don't know. I mean, I don't think it scales, Bob.
No, but
So I would plan on it being closer to 30 because most of his work, it doesn't matter if it's 400 or 2,000.
But from what I could tell, he dropped the data that he got. He dropped that into standard algorithms to process it, and
Right.
broke it down geographically and dropped it on a map.
Right.
So it's
Yeah, that
mostly
won't make a much of impact. It's all his time. Doesn't matter if it's 1,000, 2,000 data points or 400. It's there's probably a very small variable component for the licensing unless it's proprietary code. But the big thing is MBI has accepted the data, so that's a point in his favor. And 400, hopefully, assuming a random scattering around town, that might be enough to hit all of the blocks for a challenge. So there could be good ROI on this, no matter what it costs.
just to point out, one place that will show the gaps again is right against the water. Certainly the water down along here, you're not going to have massive numbers of middle schoolers who live in Wings Neck or Scraggy Neck, etc. So those might continue to be gaps. And those are places where we know there are problems already. So
I don't think it'll be perfect, but any improvement in the quality of the data we have in a format MBI will accept is key, because it's got to be in a format MBI will take.
true. Okay. Well, again, that clearly we've identified it. Regardless of what the cost is, that's going to be a priority in terms of a recommendation, an immediate recommendation going forward. And the Cambridge model, I'll look at that again.
Right.
Seems to be good. You mentioned that the Falmouth feasibility study did not include financials, and that cost was that the one that was $10,000?
You're right. So they did it in two steps, right? They had Doug Dawson do a feasibility study, which was largely a survey And then they had Tilson do the design, which
Mhm.
was much more expensive. Yeah. Quickly, I have to step out for about 5 or 10 minutes. I'll be back.
Okay,
Yeah, the Cambridge one was done by a company called CTC Technology and Energy. And it is, I mean, it is so thorough. I don't know whether we could afford to do this. The Tilson model might be more financially acceptable, although it won't give us a complete answer. It might point in the right direction. The CTC Cambridge thing is like, it literally breaks down the number of people you have to have and, what the financials would be in terms of being able to, say, underwrite service to areas where their income is below a certain level. And it literally, down to the poles and underground and everything. It's incredibly
Hmm.
good, and it
So they've
shows
combined the two basically into one work product and
yeah,
then went beyond it a little more.
yeah, they
Mhm.
did. I don't know if it would be worth getting in touch with CTC, but I have a feeling a study of this kind might be a little on the expensive side because it's really thorough.
But in order to jump into a business like this where you're planning on spending tens of millions of dollars, I think it'd be money well spent to do a thorough study well ahead of time to really know what you're getting into. I think not including all this financial information I think that's, I don't know, I think that's inappropriate.
Hmm. I agree with Tony, and I think regardless of the final determined outcome, even if Verizon comes in and does it, even if Comcast comes in and upgrades everyone to fiber, GoNet Speed comes in, Open Cape, the town owned, doesn't matter. This data, it cuts the barrier to entry for any of the solutions because it will also potentially enable grant money. So with the grant money in mind there, we're easing the path for whatever final outcome, regardless of the choice.
Yeah, I do agree with that. The more information we have, at least we know what our choices are. If we can at least say, we know we have problems in X area, that's the first place to start. Because then you're establishing a problem and you're designing parameters into it so people have some idea of what we're attempting to do. Because obviously, when Gary was on this morning, he was confused by exactly what our long-term intentions are, and I think we're more focused right at the moment on the immediacy of getting some funding. But I think some of his points were valid, in that people who are not into the weeds in this like we are might have the more long-term view in mind of, okay, what's this going to really bring us, and what's the big time cost going to be?
I think we need
Well, again,
granularity down to chunks of 200, 250. Bob, what was the size of the fiber hood Whip City was saying? They do it in blocks of what, 200? Or Tony might know off the top of his head.
Yeah, roughly 200 to 250 residences per fiber hood.
Yeah, we need granularity like that ultimately because it's going to be probably neighborhood by neighborhood penetration rates and needs are going to be different. So we kind of need to get down to that kind of size chunks of town level data to have a pretty confident picture of how this goes forward.
okay.
I think, would it be appropriate for me to stop sharing my screen now?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. But I think that's absolutely the point, is to try to identify exactly where the problems are. Now let's think about what's going on with Verizon right now in terms of Greg Gables and Monument Beach. They clearly see a business case for doing a full build out down that far, at least as far as the 743 and 759 exchanges go, which seems to be where they're running. I think it'd be very instructive over time. I don't know if we'll immediately have the information to see what the take rate is, because again, they're overbuilding on top of what Comcast has provided down there.
Since we're live on TV, should we maybe clarify that they haven't confirmed nor denied what they're doing? And so this is still just speculation based on all that activity we see, because even though we keep asking them, they won't formally say anything and commit to anything. So We don't know
Not,
for sure that they're doing it, even though we see trucks running around like crazy and sandwich boards. The executives are denying any build out right now.
Yeah, well, again, on the presumption, and again, it is a presumption that that's what they're doing. When they start formally offering it to people, I think we could do a backdoor survey and find out kind of what their take rate is going to be or is becoming. If people in those areas I know are dissatisfied with Comcast and will look for an alternative. Again, from what I've heard in Buzzards Bay, their current customers are getting offered a deal of $69 a month plus a bit extra for a phone line. So if they start offering that to customers in Gray Gables and Monument Beach, and we'll know pretty soon what that offering is, we can probably the take rate there would be instructive of the take rate in any kind of a pro forma model for an MLP or for a competitor or anybody else who wants to do a fiber build out in the rest of town.
do we know?
Does that make sense?
Right, yeah. Regarding Buzzards Bay, I'm assuming that they offer only telephone and internet service. There is no television, no cable TV equivalent. Is that correct? Does anybody
Yes.
know? Okay, that is correct.
No.
Yeah, I was just curious. I mean, I'd pay the money and even keep my cable TV with Comcast if streaming got to be too hard, just to get reliable internet service here. That held up. But I'm just curious because I know that is going to be a barrier for some customers. I mean, I was talking to people that are more in the older age group. I was talking to a contractor who's doing some work for us the other day, and he had tried some streaming and was just confused by it. And Tony can speak to this more directly. But so I think that's one area. I think if they were to just come in and offer what they did in my old hometown, and they'd just, oh yeah, we'll give you the whole package, TV and internet and phone, then they would probably clean up. But I know that there are barriers to them offering cable television service. There's a lot of regulatory things they have to overcome. So, but even there, $70 a month, I'd pay it. They could have my money right now, please.
Yeah.
Several towns we spoke to said as soon as they did Muni Fiber or had BIOS come in, or Muni Fiber specifically, they said that Comcast play was to aggressively market 3-year contracts for really discounted rates, triple play packages, lock people in to try to bankrupt the new system. And so that's their blitz play. So the towns ended up benefiting because the people that didn't need the faster service ended up paying a heck of a lot less money for the Comcast as soon as the second network went in. And so people were thrilled either with the new service or the newly discounted price.
Competition is a wonderful thing.
I would take advantage of that if I could, if the Comcast didn't keep going down. I mean, between dropped phone calls and dropped other things, it gets quite annoying. Okay, well, with that, in terms of a way forward for this presentation, I'm going to start to put an outline together, and I'm going to circulate this to everybody for discussion next week, and we'll put a good bit of time into discussion of this next week. Specifically with regard to the recommendations. The one other recommendation I think we ought to make is to become a little more formal in terms of our cooperation with perhaps the Falmouth MLP, any other Cape towns that as the Cape Cod Technology Council is trying to put together something more formal. I think we ought to recommend that the town of Bourne participate actively. And I'll get to this, and I think this is the next item, is I think we ought to say that recommend that Bourne formally participate in the Mass Broadband Coalition, which doesn't really have any downsides at all. Right now, it just looks like it's just a discussion group. But with that, does anyone else have comments on going forward with preparing the presentation? What I'm going to do is do it in outline form that can be dropped into a PowerPoint, and then we can, if that looks like it's agreeable to everybody, once we agree on that as an outline, that can be the PowerPoint and also the headings for the written report that we turn
No
into
doubt,
the
yeah.
town.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, with that, I'm going to draw that discussion to a close. We're running out of time here. The next, the Broadband Coalition, item F. Just to let you know, a couple of us sat in on the Broadband Coalition meeting, and we asked specifically about kind of what their terms of reference are, what their formal participation structure is, their vote structure for any recommendations or any letters that they send out, and right now they don't seem to have any. I pointed out that anything that if we were to participate for Bourne as a member of this, to sign on, to agree to, or anything else, we would have to have the time to run that through our committee and then through the select board. And neither of those necessarily could be very quick. So that if something came up very quick and the coalition were to write a letter, they could do that very quickly, but we would not be able to sign on. For instance, the city of New Bedford doesn't have to go through a select board. They can basically go through the general town manager approach and sign on very quickly. The other towns, it would be slower. Bob Espindola is on the select board in Fairhaven, and he said he could get something through very quickly. They do not have a formal broadband committee. It's kind of done ad hoc, but he could get it through the select board very relatively quickly. And a couple of the other people said they hadn't thought about it at all. But my recommendation is that we make the recommendation to the select board that Bourne formally participate, with a caveat that we aren't going to be able to participate in anything that requires a vote without select board approval. Any comments on that?
I agree. We should just move
Makes
ahead
sense.
with that.
Yeah.
That sounds reasonable.
Yeah, and since it didn't seem they wanted to be any more formal, since a lot of the towns liked that it was a very informal information sharing. So they were like, if letters need to be signed, we'd probably end up writing the first draft for the other towns to be plagiarizing. So
by the way, I'm speaking of writing letters really quickly. If anybody has any intelligence on any other towns that might have signed on with regard to comments on the BEAD regulations and endorsing us. Apparently, several of the other towns and committees, etc., noticed our activity, and it was much more comprehensive than anything anybody else did.
Well, yeah.
So
I think we
Yeah,
can thank Brian for that. That was an incredible document you generated.
well, my wallet and contractor did help. So, we don't have Qualcomm money, but I can sometimes swing a little donation to a writer to assist.
okay, well, we'll see what the comments that come back from MBI are. I think they are required under state regulations. They've got to be responsive to any comments that come in. And at least under federal regulations, I know that's the case. So let's see how comprehensive their comments are or responses are to each of the points we brought up.
Is there a statutory time limit for them to respond, or can it be next year?
No, it's in the BEAD. It's in the BEAD schedule.
Mm-hmm.
But
What is it?
Bob's point that how they respond isn't well laid out. Just the date that they have to respond to the comments.
Yeah, agreed. They could just throw it in the shredder, but they have to at least
They
acknowledge
can
it
say,
came in.
they can just say, we got them, we read them.
If they have to follow since this is federal money, if they have to follow the federal rules of administrative procedure, that's very specific on what an agency has to do in responding to comments when they have an open docket. It's whether they get some kind of a pass from the state of Massachusetts to obfuscate a bit, shall we say. We don't know. We'll find out. Okay.
Yeah, the FOIA request or the mass records law request contact if you want to put a formal ask in. But if they're still in a deliberation process, it's probably exempted.
Yeah. Again, I'm sure they did. They demanded all of this stuff by December 15th, and I'm sure they haven't done anything. They're just opening the envelopes right now, figuratively. Okay.
Maybe literally.
Exactly. Okay, moving forward, the next item was something Anne Marie was going to provide, is that to find a point of contact for the new bridge in terms of providing passage for fiber infrastructure, and we'll defer to later when she feels better. Then last item I have is clarification of the open meeting law for subcommittees. And I have not done anything. I was going to pursue MJ, but I got sidetracked and have not actually.
Well,
I think Jed and I went back and forth on that. If you don't have a quorum in a meeting, then it's not that meeting is not under or eligible for the open meeting law.
correct.
So the open meeting law wouldn't apply to a subcommittee of less than a quorum.
Yeah, that's my reading on it too. I mean, you have to have a quorum for the open meeting law to apply.
Okay. I'm going to ask Gary here. Gary's been involved in a number of public meetings, open meetings, been on committees, been following committees. Do you have any comments on that?
That's a good one. And as far as my rule of thumb was as long as we didn't have a quorum, we could
Okay.
discuss something. But that might not, I'm not a lawyer. And I didn't stay at a Holiday Inn last night, so I don't know the real answer. But,
Okay.
did we miss an item on the agenda?
We did kind of skip over changes to Comcast service.
That's
No,
not
that
on
was
the
on-
agenda.
I'm
That
sorry.
was on the amended one. You have to go back to the original.
The
Well, we're
amended
not-
agenda is not valid.
Why is that? Well, what
Say
happened
again?
there?
That was posted too late.
Not 48 hours of business days ahead.
Okay.
So we have to put that off.
Yeah.
Who posted it? On the town
that
website?
that was me. I put that in at 0700 on Tuesday morning, hoping that Marie or Kathleen would see it by 8:30 and be able to post it.
I'm being a little facetious.
Yeah.
As like you alluded to, my previous experiences with that, I was being a little facetious. I know that prior to the recording beginning, we covered that real quick, and it was an
Right,
administrative
okay.
item.
So,
For the whole meeting, for the official version, I'd like to have had the record state that it was deleted for a reason. But
Okay.
that's a bigger
point.
town-wide problem. That's not just this issue problem.
totally.
Every board and every committee has their fingers in the pie. As far as I know, our town clerk still has a letter that says what the official posting rules are supposed to be. Doesn't mean anybody follows it. It just means that Mr. Johnson created one after numerous public meeting violation
Actually, Gary,
investigations that I instigated. So we
It's
have
actually-
a process, but nobody in town follows it. But I thank you guys for recognizing that we have a process.
we do.
No,
So
that's what I'm
Gary-
saying. To wrap it back up, I'm thanking that we do have a process, that you recognized it and even corrected your own mistake before it happened.
Mhm.
That does not happen in town very often. This was a one-off occurrence in my experience. But
So
thank you
it's
very much for doing that.
I wonder,
actually,
would that be part of the report to the select board?
no.
No, they
Yeah.
know that. They do it themselves. They amend
No.
them, and
No, the select board's pretty good, but
every
anyway,
board does it.
But
Yeah.
Gary, it's a state, it's not the town clerk, so the state set the regulation. And the clerk just happens to have made it known to everybody in town because of, as you said,
Right.
but we all have the regulation. We talked about this at our first meeting, and it says it right in there, you gotta have a quorum.
What I mean, oh, that's a different part. What I mean is, for the postings, we do have a town procedure posted not to do this any later than a Wednesday for meetings occurring on a certain day the next week
Correct, yeah.
to avoid this whole process even hitting to happen.
Yeah,
But when
that's
people
also in the
do it on
same
their own at
document.
the last minute. That's a problem.
Yeah, that's also in the same document. It's 48 hours before the meeting starts. So anyway, back to you, Bob.
Okay, well, and thanks for the clarification on that, and I think that concludes our agenda, and I think now we start putting the agenda for the following week together.
There you
And
go.
Jed's gonna put that up on the screen.
Are we
Can
gonna,
right.
we're meeting
I'll-
next week?
Right. I wanted to put in a suggestion. I don't know, because I was away for 3 weeks in California and I was very busy. But I don't know if Jed sent this out or not, but the FCC is contemplating a rulemaking having to do with the utility poles and the availability of data to those that want to use the utility poles. Jed, did you see that?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of similar to what's going on with the one touch. But I don't, I mean, so what can we do to advise the selectmen on that, John?
I'm not. What I wanted to do is you just for discussion next week, post what I got from the FCC website. I think the only thing that I found useful was the fact that it seemed to indicate, and I'm not sure, that it would be legally incumbent upon the pole owners to supply information that they have regarding pole data. And because this is something that I know Brian's been after for a long time, and every time we request it, we seem to run into a wall. So I will circulate what I've got. If you guys think it's worth discussing, I think it might be too late for us in the instant purpose, but perhaps down the road, it would give us a way to basically force Verizon or Eversource to say, look, the rules say you've got to make this data available.
So maybe we just add, because we don't want to start a discussion here, but why don't we just add it to the agenda?
That's what
for
I
next
was
week?
saying.
And
Add to the
we
agenda,
can
and
either
okay.
discuss then whether it's appropriate or not, and forward out the information you have, and we'll discuss it then. You know, even if it's brief.
Yeah, Jed, I think you could actually replace item I with that because we just, I think, clarified.
Yeah, I was
don't
gonna
think we
take
need to
that
clarify
out.
Yeah,
that
we're done
anymore.
with item I.
Okay. I think we're done with G also, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
All right.
And so I'm trying to read this. It's a little small on the screen I'm reading here.
So I'll go through what we have now. So typical 1, 2, and 3, as always, the 2 liaison items. On the media outreach, Bob, I added the item that you put out for putting together a draft to the enterprise on the select board meeting. On the speed test, I've added the item you put out there for requesting the Cape Cod Commission speed test data.
Yeah, and I'm going to also request a formal request to the MBI for their speed test data.
Okay, so
double I would be, you can do them all in one, right?
Yeah.
are we going to go back and we're going to talk more about the select board presentation, right?
Sure.
Yeah, just a quick request here, only because I've got a conflict later that morning on my calendar and I've got to drive. Can we move that discussion further up in the agenda to maybe make that item A? And then, Jed, I've got to start driving at about 9:30. I've got to get to an appointment at 10:30 in Duxbury. I can be on the phone during the call later on, but I'm going to turn the chair over to you at the point where I have to leave. But since I'm going to be doing the oral presentation on the select board, we need that up front a bit.
It's there. It's 4A.
Very good. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's good.
Anything else?
How about that other is it here, the other item where,
So what was it? What's the agenda item?
well, I called it, discussion of changes to Comcast service. Not knowing anything about what was posted on the, there was some Facebook committee, et cetera.
Oh, so those are, that is audio issues on CBS. That would be that.
Oh yeah, yeah, okay.
Just, we'll put that in and just discuss it so that any of us are cognizant of what's going on in case we get calls from anybody about it.
Okay.
I saw that was, sort of global, and the idea was it was probably originating with the feed, not
Right.
with
So
the
that's why
carrier.
we're going to discuss it. It's not on the agenda for today.
Okay,
That's why I put it up this way, Wendy. Do you see it?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's right. It's basically addressing it as Channel 4 and CBS, not as Comcast.
Why are we addressing it at all?
Because there've been a lot of complaints on the Bourne Facebook page.
and they may come to us.
Comcast.
Okay. Anything else?
No. Okay, with that, I'm going to adjourn the meeting at 9:42.
Yeah.
Thank you for your patience. Thank you, Gary, for your participation and comments as always. And just for scheduling, after this, depending on how far we get with the presentation for the select board, after we come up and agree on an outline, I think it's appropriate next week to put together a subcommittee to polish it off, or a couple of other people to help me. And then after that, we can probably delay and go to 2-week meetings, I think.
I think we already created that subcommittee, didn't we, Bob? It's yourself, Wendy, and me.
Yep.
Oh, right. Exactly.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. So you guys can work during this week if you want to speed things along, and we'll discuss that on the next meeting.
Okie doke.
Okay, folks.
Thank you. See you next week.
See you next week.
Okay. Very good.
Bye.
Have a good week, folks.
Take care.
Bye-bye.